So this is a short film. This is a new antinatalist short film. It's called If Snails Could Bleed Red. The person that actually brought this to my attention was the one and only Cato the Wiser. So it's too bad that he's not here to enjoy the watch along. But he brought this to my attention. He said that Scary Gary had mentioned this on one of his streams or one of his more recent videos. This came out about 7 days ago. It's sitting around 238 views. We're getting in right at the ground level. At the ground level, we're kind of like people that discovered Faggiato Blows. Prof says, "My God, the bass is so shitty and offbeat. Who let them get away with that?" Okay, listen, that's just Latino rap. That's just what Latino rap sounds like. Maybe I don't know. Maybe get cultured, pal. Maybe get off the mountain every once in a while. Okay. So I'm very excited. This is a stop motion animation little film here. If Snails Could Bleed. Let's see what we got.
If snails could bleed red. A good night story. Once upon a time, there was a human child. When it rained.
Also, they call this a stop motion controversial short film. I don't know. I think this is just technically just regular animation. This does not appear to have been made in the stop motion way. This just looks like it's just kind of traditionally, maybe crudely so, but traditionally animated. Kind of like the way that they used to make old episodes of South Park, or if you saw The Spirit of Christmas, the original South Park kind of episode that got Matt Stone and Trey Parker noticed.
The child would walk outside. It would sometimes step onto snails by accident.
Now, if this little fucking kid had never been born, and if that snail had never existed, no snail gets stepped on, and there's no kid to step on the snail.
Or mindlessness.
Or
The
mindlessness.
snails would be crushed, mashed, smashed, and squashed. Yet they were still alive. The human child couldn't.
He's just happy as a clam. Look at that smile on his face. What a sick fuck. Now I'm all in on the Antinatalists. Now I've joined their side. This cartoon has convinced me.
Bear the scene, or maybe just didn't care, and would therefore just walk away. There was another human child. Sometimes it would feel like an alien. When it rained and the child would walk outside, it would sometimes...
Oh no, another snail. I was going to joke and say that she steps on snails. They beat me to it.
...onto snails by accident. The snails would be crushed, mashed, smashed, and squashed. Yet,
I hope this little girl gets down on her hands and knees and slurps up the snail's body. And then she looks directly at camera and goes, "Escargot!"
they were still alive. The child couldn't bear the scene, so it
So she went to the lake and drowned herself. The pain of existence.
decided to set the snail free of its pain. It would stomp and tramp with all its power onto the half-smashed snail. Then the snail was free of all suffering. Other people saw what the child had done and misunderstood. They thought the child was nasty, bad, and mean. What a wicked.
I mean, it kind of tells you a lot about the mindset of the people that are very deep into antinatalism, where they kind of always view things through these very kind of simplistic, childlike lenses. I mean, because this is not just reductive in a way to like kind of illustrate a broader point. I mean, I suppose you could make that argument, but this is how they actually just talk about these things. And the answer to this is going to be some very simplistic, like, well, if nobody existed, none of this happens. Life is pain. Life is trauma. Life is embarrassment. Life is stepping on snails.
Wicked scene. The child thought, if snails would bleed red, maybe they would take their hurt seriously. Then the child gathered all its courage and argued that it's nasty, bad, and mean to look and walk away and let half-smashed snails suffer.
Oh, are they going to get really dark? Are they going to be like, well, people are kind of like half-smashed snails. And this is about as good as your life is going to get, is some kind of experience like this. So wouldn't it be better if none of it was possible at all? Because this is as good as it gets. This is as good as it gets.
Some of the other people knew the child was technically right. Unfortunately, they didn't start caring about suffering. They kept on consuming animal products, praying instead of helping, having kids and pets.
Also said voting for corrupt politicians at the end there. Having kids and pets and voting for corrupt politicians. Now we have made a giant leap, maybe a quantum leap.
And voting for a corrupt politician.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
When the child grew up, it had so much Weltschmerz. It wanted suffering to no longer exist. There was only one way, by destroying planet Earth completely. The other humans thought it was nasty, bad, mad, and mean.
And then she said, motherfucker, didn't you see what I said about the snail? Didn't you see what I said about the snail? Don't you get it, guys?
War, religion, corruption, slavery, war, abuse, animal factories, pain, exploitation, disease, work, cannibalism, suffering, ignorance, and so on.
Yeah, this is what happens when you fill your life with nothing, dear narrator. You have filled your life with nothing, so all you do is hyperfixate on your neurotic feelings. Because there's nothing else to distract you. It's just very unhealthy. This is a very unhealthy way to be. I got to imagine, it's got to be really depressing, very dour to be like a real antinatalist. Like somebody that's just kind of somewhat of a normal person that finds themselves in a bad spot. And they want to lash out. And they don't want to take personal responsibility for anything that happens in their life. And at the end of the day, antinatalism as a belief basically kind of gives you permission to quit, to give up, to not do anything. Because all of these other bad things exist, so that kind of frees you up. You don't want to be engaging with any of that kind of stuff, even though they totally do. Like, they're eating their vegan biscuits and their vegan cookies and shit like that. The amount of destruction to the ecology that is required to make those kinds of products, well, that's just not that big of a deal. In fact, they celebrate it because they're all accelerationists.
It hurt too much to live in such a universe. Such a cruel reality. And not being able to make all suffering disappear. So, because it couldn't make all suffering disappear, after one last goodnight story, it made itself disappear.
There you go, problem solved. Well, isn't that, I guess, technically, from the perspective of an antinatalist, this is a happy ending. It's about as good as it gets. Now we're just star stuff.
So peaceful, so free. Only dead ones can be.
No, guys, of course, antinatalism is not a death cult. What are you talking about? They're not a death cult or anything like that. I've been told many times by many antinatalists, we are not a death cult. You don't get it. You just don't get it.
Good night. Sleep tight.
Hopefully you don't wake up in the morning. Well, that was super powerful. Let's check out some of the comments. We got 10 comments. Great piece of art. This must have taken a massive effort, says the cosmic antinatalist. Yanovec 14 says this is empathy. Excellent. Empathy in animation form. Love it. For the pets part, I thought it was ethical as long as you adopt. Oh, we got some consternation here. High Entropy 903 says cats and dogs are the most popular pets. However, they are meat eaters. That's right. If you guys don't know, dogs and cats are what they call obligate carnivores. They have to eat meat to have a balanced diet, just like people. Just like people. It's the easiest way to get all the nutrients you need. Even if you feed them with a healthy vegan diet, whether that's possible or not is another discussion, or have herbivore animals, pets are not that different than kids. Oh my God. The terminally online. People have them for their own needs, companionship, being responsible for another being, life, giving a sense of self-importance, entertainment, etc. No, it gives your life a purpose. Yes, because it's kind of one of our functions as a species. It's like slavery. Pets aren't free at all and are kept alive because the humans want to. If there are too many animals in shelters and on streets, they could get euthanized instead. It would be hypocritical and make zero sense to keep them alive. Feeding them with the meat of other animals. The rest of them should get sterilized. Pets aren't really part of the ecosystem. If they are outdoor pets, they're usually bad due to overhunting the environment. So they aren't even keeping the ecosystem stable. Like, where do they get these ideas? Are they just like listening to people like Scary Gary? This sounds like very much something that Scary Gary would say and put a lot of portent onto it. Keeping the ecosystem stable isn't automatically a bad thing, since the collapse of the world's ecosystem doesn't lead to the extinction of all life, but rather more chaos and more suffering. Pets are simply consumers too, and they are what/who we consume: the cuteness, cuddles, and company. So this person, this high entropy person, I don't want to smear the rest of the right to no longer exist channel here. But this person seems to be kind of advocating for what they call in these circles the big red button, which means basically just complete catastrophic end time stuff, the world ceasing to exist and producing life or anything like that. This is more of an ethylist philosophy. The ethylism is kind of an outgrowth of antinatalism. They're like kind of the hardcore people. They're the metalheads of the antinatalist world. Prof says, made the mistake of looking up what Coke Space is going for on eBay. Not a good idea. $8 mini cans. Should have kept the case I had in the good old days. Too bad I love the taste of Gary so much. It's true. It's true. Again, you could be sitting on a fortune. Online Truth 9979 says, I see what you're saying. I would just say that if a pet is given an ethical diet and will be taken care of properly, it's better to have that pet if it wants to live and doesn't want to be euthanized. So again, I mean, they can't even really live to their values. They have to rationalize exceptions for themselves constantly because none of them actually really want to live this way. They just don't see any other way like forward for themselves. And usually it's because they have like really kind of either dire circumstances or dour circumstances. They're not in good places in their life. A lot of times it's mental illness, but it's also just poor decisions. And then you have people like Diane, who is just like a kind of a trad wife, you know? She's kind of got that stay-at-home mom energy, that stay-at-home wife energy. Zane Dragon says, cats and dogs need meat to stay healthy. They are carnivores. That's why they have fangs. What are your plans for helping to change public opinion on the right to die and Ephilism? Will you go on any shows? The Right to No Longer Exist says, I'd like to think I'm doing something already with this channel, but I'm open to being on something. I just have anxiety and not sure I would be the best spokesperson other than the podcast. The person responds, I understand that. Are there others who can speak in your organization's behalf? As for antinatalism, I think antinatalism movement would benefit from prioritizing which countries to invest in. For example, Canada has more humane maid laws, whereas the UK has it illegal. So antinatalism in the UK is more of a priority. Oh yeah, that's right. Canada's getting ready to really expand eligibility for maid, which we've talked about in the past. So not a big surprise that they're into that. Let's see here. So the Right to No Longer Exist channel. Now this is mostly, I believe, an audio only podcast. They have done a little bit of outreach on the streets. I suppose we could check that out from like 9 months ago. This is like an intermittent podcast. That Amanda Suchnick person that we've looked at a few times, she is often on this or has been on it a few times. Speaking in very hushed tones about how important their work is and stuff. Prabhu says, that's not what I thought the big red button was. That's not what you thought the big red button was in terms of Ephilism, but just like ending all existence. I mean, I always assumed that's kind of what they meant. It was like launch all the nukes. Like what else would it mean? The end of all life, the life as we know it, the end of everything. So let's check out their Right to Die outreach. I just kind of want to see these, holy shit, some of these people out in the wild. Really see what we can rustle up here. Do. She looks so happy to be there. Is this okay? I'm just making sure this is not like all pictures for a half hour.
But
People are out here killing themselves every day and they don't care, huh?
yeah, exactly. Why not give them a peaceful exit?
Yeah.
You should have that option.
Yeah.
Like they shouldn't have to resort to guns and drugs and jumps and all that.
But I worked at a suicide prevention my career, so I don't.
But he's like, why? Why did you do that?
wouldn't want to see somebody who's suicidal do this.
Why is that?
I'll tell you why, because they don't always know that there's life beyond that, and a lot of times when they turn around, they figure it out better, and then they get their life on track.
Exactly. Yeah. See, people are, succumb to moments of despair, depression, which can lead to impulsive actions, impulsive behaviors, impulsive habits. You can do the right thing and try to help people through that. And some of these people, they could be helping each other, but they don't. They keep themselves in this fucking loop. This loop of conversation. This is the only conversation they have. Oftentimes, this is the only friends that they seem like they have. And they're never able to get out or see any other perspective in any kind of serious way. They don't seriously consider everything. It's a lot of these people, at least I think on this podcast, they skew a little bit younger, maybe in their late 20s, early 30s. At least I know some of them do. And it's like, these guys just don't have any fucking real life experience. They haven't done anything. And then they talk about things that, like I've done, I'm sure most of you out there have done. And you're like, well, that's not really how it is. They say things like, pets are just like kids. Oh, Prophet says that was a clit joke, Sean. Oh, okay. All right, you got me. Well played. Well played. I don't make clit jokes around here.
What about
But
the people?
but if you get somebody who's like chronically suicidal, maybe at some point, but how do you make that decision?
Well, then
I mean, legally.
how does the person make the decision that whether they want to leave
So
life?
in suicide, what it is it's an intolerance of pain. They can't tolerate the pain, the psychological and or physical or both.
I thought we could do suicide.
So you get that, right? So once they get to that place, to intervene, the way we would intervene is to ask them why they want to die. And a lot of times they'll just go right to, well, I can't tolerate this. Okay. So
Yeah, so this is more for...
you feel like it's this cycle. If you break them out of it, why break them out of it? Why just say everybody who's suicidal, let's go ahead?
No, you could have what you have is a safeguards, a program that, has methods where you see a therapist and they try to talk you out
Well, it's
of
not
it.
talking out of it, it's listening to why you want to die, and then why would you want to live?
Yeah.
Some people actually do want to live, but they want to die greater in their feeling part.
Say that again?
All right, so like if you're in pain,
So they have emotions, you see. It's almost you have to explain it to them like they're children. Like if you have emotions, sometimes your emotions can kind of give you false positives about what you would like to do to kind of resolve your emotional turmoil or stress. And he's already said this. He's already said it. They willfully do not want to understand.
psychological pain, you've been traumatized, right? So now you got this pain, you can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
You can't tolerate it anymore. So the only way out is one way. I'll tolerate it if I die.
Yes.
I won't have to deal with it.
That's what they think, though, because we're forcing other people to live and creating taboos behind suicide that they're not able to acquire programs.
Creating taboos about suicide. Yes, it is not healthy to encourage people and to even give people that option. I mean, like, I've been suicidal in my life. I've known people that are suicidal. You'll get through it. It's not easy. I'm not trying to like suggest that it's like not a difficult time in your life, or it's not, or it's an easy thing to get over, or change your mind about, or change your thinking. But oftentimes, if you just kind of can get through that next phase, get to that next phase, sometimes people like this can facilitate that by reminding you of the things that you have in your life. You are never just you. You are generally connected to other things, whether it's like your job, your friends, your family. And oftentimes, some of these people, they don't have enough of those resources, or have actively turned their back on those kinds of resources, those kinds of support systems, because obviously most people, when they hear about antinatalism, or more extremely ephilism, they find it fucking weird. They find it strange. They don't think it's healthy. They might try to talk you out of it. And they don't like to have themselves challenged at all. They don't like to be challenged about their ideas or any of the things that they say. And even when they open themselves out to it, they just repeat the same shit over and over again. They never engage in any kind of sincere way. We watched that to Anton guy and his buddy when they were out in the UK. They were out at like Speaker's Corner. They weren't listening. They weren't actually listening to anybody. They were waiting for their turn to say their talking points. It's just silly.
Suicidal people, I'd be all for it.
Yeah, the point is, why can't both things be happening at the same time, right? Like, I can't even drink.
I'm not against what you're saying. I'm not necessarily for it either.
Okay.
I'm in that place where, because I did my career around suicide prevention, it's harder for me just to say to the kid,
yeah, why don't you just have a spine and tell him, like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. You're clearly not suicidal because you're all out here with signs advocating for this shit. If you were suicidal, you'd be fucking dead. Have a spine and just be like, no, man, I actually have a lot of experience with this. This is my field of work. This is my study. It was my profession. I know what you guys are saying is kind of simplistic.
sitting in, because I was in juvenile corrections, and you're sitting in that cell saying, oh, you can't handle this, right? And so once they agree that they're going to be safe for a night, let them think about what it is, and then you start working towards, well, what do you want to get out of this? I mean, if you can't, because you can always commit suicide later once you get out.
Yeah, but that's a pretty threatening, it's a dangerous threat to say, hey, you can go shoot yourself or jump off a bridge or do something violent.
And look at this fucking dipshit. He's saying it's kind of a threat. Isn't that kind of a dangerous threat to suggest to them that, like, hey, man, you can kill yourself anytime. Why don't you give this other thing a chance before you go do something extreme? Well, that's kind of like a threat. You're kind of like telling somebody to, yeah, because you don't have the courage of your convictions and you don't want to kill yourself because you're not suicidal.
Isn't it kind of condescending too and arrogant to say that?
Could be.
Yeah.
But I guess the thing is,
if we really care,
if you're going to get through here,
If you really cared, you would just affirm whatever they tell you right off the bat. Like, what does this guy think? So if he thinks like, I'm sure he would reference maybe the MAID program or something, which their standards are pretty suspicious, very suspect, we'll say. What does he think, like, in a perfect world, what do you think these assessors would be doing? What do you think these therapists would be doing if somebody came to them and told them that they wanted to commit suicide and they had to kind of go through this rigmarole, this process of assessment and analysis and observation before they were allowed to do that? What do you think that they're going to do? What do you think they're going to say to people? They're going to say the same thing this guy did. So you don't even believe in the things that you purport to believe at all. You just want somebody to tell you, like, yeah, of course, sure, no, anything you want, anytime you want, on demand. Suicide pods, on demand.
Why would you get through here? Because all I can do, I have no mandate. I can't say no. I have to stop you.
Well,
I was in the position where all I could do is stop them.
Yeah.
So I said, why you want to die? And then I'd listen to them for a half hour or more, or whatever it took. And if they said, I just can't handle the pain I'm in right now, I'd say, what about it? What and then we go to the origin of the pain.
Yeah, and then a lot of times
could be resolved, but they didn't know it.
Okay, sure, that's fine.
Yeah, because oftentimes people do not understand why they feel the way they do. And it can help, it can be very helpful just to talk to somebody, anybody. It doesn't even have to be a professional. Just to hear your own thoughts spoken out loud can really provide so much fucking clarity. Especially with the online world we live in and so much shit online. Like, there's probably tons of time where you think about things that are very important to you, but you never get a chance to kind of express them or work them out with anybody. That's why, like, kind of developing some kind of community, some kind of family structure, whether that's friends or blood relatives, that's why that shit is so important to human beings in general. Like, you have to be able to speak your truth and get it out there just to see how everybody else reacts to it. And so you can become, like, articulate and coherent in your thoughts and your words. Not like me, obviously.
But wouldn't we want to prevent suffering, period, prior to a future event that could be catastrophic? So someone suffering, some people could get out of that suffering, which isn't really temporary. A lot of people don't have temporary.
Again, and we have to just go here again. They see it as a zero-sum game. Like, oh, you're in suffering and you could suffer again. Therefore, why would you even want to open yourself up to that possibility? Because that's what they go through. Like, when they go back to the argument about like being consent, giving consent to be born, because they weigh the pain or the suffering that you will feel in a much greater capacity than any of the joy that you'll ever feel. They even say it, and I believe actually I got it from this podcast when the guy was talking about it. He says, no pleasure will ever be more than the suffering that you will feel in this world. Like, they kind of reject the notion that you kind of need both of things. Like, you need both things. Like, you're in pursuit of, we could say in their terms, pleasure. But that doesn't mean that it would be good to just sit in pleasure all the time. And you wouldn't even understand it to be pleasure if you didn't have, like, any strife in your life. Like, you wouldn't get any satisfaction out of it. And this is what goes into their whole thing. Like, they just cannot envision a world where you could ever be happy. They refuse to. Even though most of them, I'm sure, have some kind of happiness in their life. They clearly get enjoyment out of doing their podcast, talking to this friend group that they have, going out in the street. Prophet says, Suicide Pod, On Demand is definitely a heavy metal song I need to write. I agree. Prophet says, like Suicide Pod is the first part of the song, then there's a breakdown, and On Demand is the second third of the song, like a Sabbath number. There we go. Now we're cooking. Now we could become antinatalist metalheads. Okay? That's the vein we could tap. I feel like we're basically already millionaires. We just don't know it.
Problems, though. Permanent problems. People have chronic permanent ailments that last the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And
some mental illnesses are permanently horrible.
Yeah, but see, we're going as far as saying philosophically, you could be the happiest, healthiest 22-year-old that you are. But if you have the idea that I want to prevent my tragic death in a peaceful way, that you should be given that right. Basically what Belgium is doing.
You could be given that right at 22 years old. We don't allow people to do that because we make an assumption either that they're not well or they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Just like, do they have no appreciation for the wisdom of years? You know what I mean? Things change. You can change your mind about things. You can be different. These people too. You know, I talk about these people and I make fun of them all the time and shit on them. But really, honest to God, I wish they would figure it out. I would wish they would find something in their life, like build something positive for themselves so that they can kind of give themselves over to that, give themselves some sense of fucking purpose.
And, the Netherlands are doing that, Switzerland. They're headed.
Except for Diane. I exclude Diane from that wish.
In that direction. Even Canada has their maid law.
But when's the end of it, though? Like, you're 22, you're healthy. When do you decide that, hey, I know it's going to be tragic?
Oh, it could be 22. Anytime you want. Anytime you want, you can make those decisions.
If you feel like you want to prevent that tragedy from occurring, that should be your right to have.
So you're saying that it's okay?
You know, here's the secret. Here's the cheat code for this. You do. You do, but you would just have to not be a pussy about it. So you have to really believe what you're saying. You have to really believe it. It's like when rich people rich politicians that advocate for, climate change policies, Green New Deals, etc., always telling you the world is going to fucking swallow itself up. The rising tides. And then they go buy like beachfront property that they tell you is going to be underwater in 10 years. So you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I don't know if you really believe what you're telling me.
Okay, then to go ahead and take your life.
Absolutely, because that person is going to do it anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like
not always.
Not always, but
no. Sometimes they figure it out. In fact, a lot of cases, it's a temporary solution that once they give up on it and they start to learn how to cope, a lot of times it's just a coping skill away.
Okay,
but if it was chronic, and you're talking about somebody like, who's paranoid as well, it's got all kinds of things going on and can't handle it, should we just not let go?
But
see, their life has no value to these people because they're not just ethalists or antinatalists, they're also nihilists. They actually don't believe that you have inherent value as a person. So when they see that there's something wrong with you or you have some kind of illness or some kind of ailment, like, what if you had like a bum leg or something like that? They're like, well, wouldn't you rather just be dead? Wouldn't that be a better solution than, walking around with a bum leg your whole life? Can you imagine?
Suicide's not always in pain. Like, you can...
I don't know.
You can be like doing fine and still just be like, I've had enough. I'm causing so much harm just existing. I'm sick of. I'm empathetic.
Does it cause you pain to think you cause so much harm?
Sorry.
Does that cause you pain to think you cause so much harm?
Yeah.
That's painful.
But
yeah.
Yes, they're filled with existential dread, sir. You do not know who you're talking to. You are talking to mentally unwell people. And he's like, yeah, so you take on that kind of burden yourself. Well, that's why you're unhappy. He's trying to do it right now. He's trying to talk to them in a way that maybe he would talk to like his patients or whoever he was counseling. He's giving it a shot. Respect.
And we're putting pain on other beings by the harm that we're causing.
It is hard for
Not
me.
really?
And I work in a career
So you eat animals and those animals?
No, and I hope
suicide is
the animals that you eat every day. They don't
a preventable
I don't. I'm a vegetarian.
problem.
how is it preventable though when 1 million lives are doing
You
it?
don't have the neural connections.
No,
to
people
make that problem go away.
Okay.
So what if I work with you so that those neural connections develop because you're willing to go there?
That's fine, but what about the people that have a completely healthy brain and if they make...
Yeah, but you just told him that if he were to suggest anything otherwise, that is tantamount to a threat of violence. So you actually don't think anything that he does is okay?
The logical, rational decision to exit life. You think that doesn't happen?
No, it does happen. It's a sad thing.
Okay, it is sad, but it could
we
be...
don't have any control of it.
But the sadder part
You're
is...
asking us to legalize something.
Yeah.
You're asking everybody to be okay with something, and they're not.
But they should be, though, to give them that right to say, hey, I want
My
to.
life, so I should be able to do what I want.
Yeah, it's the same principles as far as abortion rights. You know, it's my body, it's my choice, it's my life, and so who
I agree with you more on the abortion choice, the active choice.
Yeah, so we're kind of just trying to take the death of dignity up a little bit of a notch, is all, and say the 47-year-old guy that's had chronic this, chronic that. Let's just as example. He should have a right just as much as the 90-year-old that has stage 4 cancer, you know.
Or the 40-year-old that has that stuff too. So,
yeah, or 20-year-old, you know.
But
I mean,
anyway, it's a concept. I mean, I don't disagree. I'm not
You do disagree. Just tell them that you disagree. I mean, come on, dude.
against like everything of it.
yeah, well,
Check out the podcast. Right there.
do we have a
So
podcast?
this all I have to do is look up legalized voluntary euthanasia.
The right to no longer exist.com.
This guy also might be retarded. No, it's on the bottom of the sign, Frank. Come on, get it together.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
right to no longer exist.
But hey, talk.
Yeah, great talk. Thank you. Take care. Have a good day.
Here to represent like how we should have a right to like take our lives, and there shouldn't be like laws against that.
Nice.
Yeah, you guys should take a trip down to Texas and put that sign up. Huh?
Oh yeah, right. Hey, nice. Thanks. Yeah, totally.
See, look, dude, he's never felt this good. He's like, a stranger came and validated me. You know, yeah, this is working for some people. You know, this guy is salty. This guy is a salty guy. He looks like he consumes a lot of sodium. Maybe he's like me and drinks a lot of energy drinks.
It's probably
It's life, but at the same time, you know.
We're forced into existence, but we should be able to end our life when we want.
Right?
yeah.
Dignity or
No, it's a separate organization where we're promoting.
No, we're just YouTubers with the podcast. We're not with those squares. They probably consider like death with dignity like gatekeepers. Too many rules. Too many questions. Too many questions.
A more progressive version of that, so everyone has the right if they want. The death of dignity right now isn't very advanced on how they approach it, or the red tape that you have to go through.
Well, it's exactly. There are stopgaps. And these are all things that are supposed to be in place. But really, as we've kind of seen in our past excursions looking into the MAID program, they're not really trying very hard to dissuade people from engaging with the program. Especially when you your numbers go from like 1,100 people did it over the course of like 6 years, and then between 2022 and 2023, it's like exploded. There's like 10,000 more people in that 1 year.
Only like 200 people utilize it per year.
my husband just did it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 7 months ago.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
It was not easy, but I'm grateful
Yeah.
because it would have been really bad.
For sure.
Yeah, imagine she would have had to take care of him and like she didn't want that. She was like, yeah, you know what, Terry, I think this is a really good idea. I think this is smart.
He would be in a coma right now.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry about that, but I'm so glad he had the option.
Yeah, me too. Oregon runs for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the
Oregon.
name of the organization that you guys
The right to no longer exist.
cool, the right
And
Oh, they're kind of in safe territory here. They're in Oregon. They're definitely in safe territory.
I'm gonna look it up.
basically just for
Does that dude have a mask on? He's improperly wearing it. Why even bother having it on then, pal? Just take it off. Just take it off. Even your girlfriend here doesn't have one. But I guess, listen, pussy's more important than COVID. It's just the way it is. It's just the truth.
any age, well, I don't want to go into those details, but yeah, just anyone with just much more advanced version of the death with dignity, where it's not 90 years old with cancer or whatever. It's if you're 37
And you just want to
had
die.
enough with your life, you're the one that should be able to make that call. No one else should be able to.
You can. I think that should be pointed out every single time. You should have the right. You should have the right to do that. Well, you can. You can.
If we were to use a Hollywood term, we'd say shots fired, shots fired.
Force existence upon you, and it's sort of like a prison, and
Right.
you're not, and the only way out is to do crude violent methods, and
He's like, have you ever heard the story of the snail? consider the snail.
Why would we want that?
Right.
We should have peaceful, graceful options for anybody because suicide happens for a lot of people.
Oh, it
and
reminds
it
me
is
of
their
what
only
my
option,
kids
and
used to be.
it's pretty sick. It's disgusting, you know. And it's sad. It's really sad. Someone like your husband, you know.
It's sad that as a society we don't encourage suicide. They should also, like, I don't know, they should probably disclose to people that they're antinatalists. They're not just pro-suicide. They don't think people should exist at all. Maybe we should throw that on it.
At 40, could have had the same option, you know. Just because you have an illness or something, it could be a philosophical view or a mental issue, depression or whatever. But you know, kind of like how Canada has their MAID law, it's a little bit more advanced than ours, but even theirs is really prohibitive on different measures and things you have to.
You haven't been keeping up, buddy. You got to keep up with the literature. That's all about to change. So, change even more. They're going to broaden it out. It's coming soon, April, sometime in April.
Go through to get it, but
Since we
Right, I'm
started.
gonna look it up.
yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. Take care.
What is this?
It's the right to die.
What is
group,
that?
Where we're talking about how it's we should legalize suicide, so people don't have to do harmful, ugly things to kill themselves.
Okay.
And if it was legal, then we just give them a peaceful way to exit.
They don't know. You know what happens at the end of the MAID program? You know, you may think it's like, oh, it's like, you know, some type of injection or it's a pod like they do over in Europe. But really, what's waiting for you is the grannies. And they'll shoot you till you're dead.
Exit life, that is. What do you think about that?
I don't have an opinion on it.
Okay.
Honest.
Well,
But
just think about it because it's important because 1 million people commit suicide per year in a violent way, and it's just
It's like, hey, yeah, cool. You guys got any heroin? I was hoping you guys would have some heroin.
like no good. And there's solutions to that problem, you know.
Okay. Well, thanks
Yeah.
for.
For sure. Yeah. Take care.
Really pulled me out of like depression.
I'm actually really interested in this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's basically a right to die, advanced right to die, a progressive right to die idea, where we're basically kind of advocating for a universal right for anybody to exit life if they want to.
So it's like, I don't know, like this perspective was it's like legalize suicide almost?
Yeah,
In a
basically
way?
you take, I mean, suicide has baggage, you know the word.
Somebody should look into these guys, into these groups that are operating, like these antinatalist groups that are operating in Oregon, and see if they have any state affiliation. Any state affiliation, whatever. Are they somebody's cousin? Are they related to anybody in Oregon politics? Because, which we might check out here, Seattle, Oregon are hotbeds of homelessness and drug addicts. And I actually found a guy who's been kind of chronicling it. I believe we've actually watched some of his stuff in the past. We might check out a couple things after this, actually.
But right to die, whatever you want to kind of want to call it, but you could call it.
So like, how would you like actually like put it in action? Like how would the government in place that?
It'd basically be like a system where like your doctor, maybe some panel of somebody to also maybe possibly like an advanced directive trustee could be a part of that vote. And,
okay,
just to make sure that you're like
a trusted person.
that you are the person
Yes.
that they know
An
and are
authority.
close with, and they know that that's your
Nobody is
philosophy,
coercing you.
and you're not being coerced. Yeah, and you know, obviously, yeah, it's not nice for the bubble gum at 7-Eleven or anything, but basically anybody gets the right to do it because if you prevent or if you like legalize it, you've now like prevented all of this chaos behind mutilation of.
He's like, look behind you. There's people on bikes, driving cars. I mean, how long can we sustain this kind of thing? You know what I mean?
He's nothing but a ghoul and a goblin who works at the basement.
You know, crude methods, people being hung and shooting themselves, and all the different things that are unnecessary, and that's what prohibition causes. You know, is all of this disgusting.
If you have access
carnage.
to euthanasia, then you don't have to have somebody find you. No.
Yeah, and you ease your anxieties by
Hurt
having
somebody.
an access to euthanasia. Like if you had some peaceful pill in your sock drawer, you're really going to cope with life a lot better.
Yeah, if you just know at any time that you could just pop this pill that's in your sock drawer and just be out, you would live a lot better. Do you think? I feel like if somebody were to give these people like an actual pill, like that they could just take themselves out with, they would be filled with so much anxiety and stress and existential dread about actually doing it. I would love it if hypothetically, like somehow, like just crazy hypothetical scenario, like they are able to get what they want just for them. They're able to go get whatever they want. How many of them would actually go through with it? And how many of them would rationalize to themselves like, well, I got to stay alive because I'm the one getting all this stuff going and the conversation started. And, it's pain. Life is pain. There's a lot of suffering, but really I got to keep going so that other people don't have to.
So it's kind of almost like a suicide prevention group should be kind of advocating for that, because you probably would continue your life a little more if you had a peaceful pill and you were like, okay, I can exit anytime.
Look at this ridiculous. So they want to take they probably kind of stealing from the guy they talked to first, as they chastised him for telling people that kind of just offhandedly saying like, hey, you can commit suicide, whatever. Why don't you try this first? That's violence, sir. That's basically a threat.
I want, so let me just move on with my life,
You don't have to be afraid of getting a terminal illness diagnosis down the road.
You wouldn't have to worry about it because you'll be dead.
To end your life.
This is incredible.
Meet me in the garden. You didn't have the mental facility to do it yourself or anything like that.
All right, I think we've seen enough of them. I can't take any more. But yeah, so that's some of their advocacy. Very exciting stuff.